Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 34 of Run to the Hills. Me and Gaza today in our matching blue hoodies.
Yeah.
I've actually got my hands in my pockets because I've been relegated to the back room. I've got my treadmill behind me and it's freezing.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, normally I love it because I only ever come in here to sweat.
Yes.
But we're still juggling the kids at home and the working. So my husband's been working in here. And the other day, we've got one portable heater because we don't have any heating upstairs because we're so tight. We don't actually have any heating upstairs. There literally isn't any radiators or anything. But we've got a portable heater that if you're lucky, it gets put in your bedroom 10 minutes before you go to bed. Anyway, he, of course, it's quite expensive to run. So he never turns it on. But he turned it on. He's brought it down here and he's turned it on. That doesn't make much difference, but he had it on all day. And then I had to do a Swift race in here. And as I was warming up, like literally normally I'm in like a proper tracksuit as I'm warming up. It's so cold in here.
Yeah.
As I was warming up, I was like, oh my God, I'm so hot. What is going on? And then I was like, my God, there's a heater on. I have not sweated. It was disgusting. And I hardly slept then for the whole night afterwards because it was so dehydrated.
Oh, Eddie.
Anyway, I digress. How are you? What's news?
What is news? Well, really well. We had a big recce on the Lakeland, sorry, not the Lakeland course, on the Bob Graham course. We ran from Honister Pass along a kind of trail called Moses Trod, then hooked up on leg 3, did Scarfell Pike, Lord's Rake, that kind of stuff, and did a nice, interesting descent into Wasdale. And then our kind of parted ways. Some didn't fancy leg 4, so they went back to Honister. But we went on to do all of leg 4.
Whoa, this is a big day.
Yeah, oh my goodness me. I planned nutrition-wise for about 7 hours with a little bit of kind of backup. But the reality of it was the initial bit took a lot longer than what we planned. Just lots of people, so lots of stopping and things like that and chatting and taking photographs. But anyway, it took 8.5 hours the whole day. So luckily Aaron had some savory snacks in his backpack that I liberated at Wasdale, and
May I liberate your snacks for you?
Yeah. I saw he had some like these kind of sausage rolly things. So I thought, well, I wasn't like worrying, but I could just feel I was on the wrong side of the nutrition. So I just thought I just needed something kind of a bit more substantial in me. So I chomped those up you, Barra. Lots of blood on the fells, though, Eddie, I'd say. We had a few tumbles and cut hands and scrapes and bumps and bruises.
Is this just you or is it the whole group?
I took a big tumble. Another guy called
no.
Christian took a big tumble. And it looks like everybody's hand were just cut to ribbons, kind of holding rocks and stuff like that. But that's leg 4. Anyone who knows has been on leg 4, yeah, Gable and stuff like that. And it's quite a rocky leg. Very tired. But again, no DOMs. So that is a result. I think that was just a shock to the system the first time.
I think so.
And then what else did we do? Monday, I went up with the Sunderland Trailblazers, which are like, I suppose, a community running group based up in Penshaw Monument. I'm not too sure if you know where that is from your time up north. And it's like a big kind of landmark, really. You can see from the A19 and nice woods, and it's on a bit of a hill. So we did this trail loop, which was kind of similar to what we talked about, where you kind of hit the summit, but then you keep going. So we did that all in all a mile. The loop was about a mile. And you had maybe 200 meters of that mile was recovery. Then you had a fast downhill, and then this drag up to this kind of bench. And then, like I say, just a 200 meter kind of jog recovery. So thanks to Alan and Vicky from the Trailblazers for making me feel welcome. And then I did the medium long run too. So I did my half marathon on kind of gentle trails. All my strength work, so all that's good. So
You are ticking every box.
I can't complain. Yeah, it's been very good. Yeah. Yourself though, what have you been up to?
I had a good, decent, I had a progressive long run to do this weekend. The trails are not clearing fast enough for me.
Yeah.
So coach and I decided to stick to the roads because I get frustrated. Fine for like jogging around and running, but they're all iced, icy track rutted snow.
Yeah.
So it's fine if you're just going to jog around. But if you want to do anything decent, I just end up getting the rage, especially when you're busy and you've only got that slot and you're like, oh man. And I always choose the wrong route, and then I was like, right, okay, let's just stick on the road. This is going to be a road session. So yeah, 2 hours, breaking down into 3 portions, progressively getting faster.
Yeah.
And I love a long run with whatever the focus is. If I have to run on a road, or as everyone's fine on the same bit of road I've been running on for the last 2 years, I breaking it down as something different. It felt like a different run. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I managed to hold the paces easy, kind of steady, and then the last bit felt really strong, felt really good. And I came back, I was like, I could have carried on, it felt great. And then the minute you stop, I stopped. I sat down, I was like, I was then ruined the rest of the day. And I was like, yeah, pride comes before a fall, Eddie. Not quite as fit as you thought you were on that long run. And then the next day I had to get up super early to get my sort of recovery run in. And oh God, I felt terrible. One of those recovery runs where you're like, if I hadn't had dogs and had to take them out, I'd have started running up the road and gone, no. Yeah. It feels all I am sober. Anyway, one of those I very rarely, I don't know about you, Gary, but I really rarely have a run where once they start, I'm not pleased I've gone. About one run every like 3 or 4 months, I have a run where I just look at my watch the whole way through going, how much longer? Oh my God, this is just painful. Do you have that? Like every few months, you're just like, I should have just stayed at home.
Not very often, to be honest. Once I'm out,
you just lie. Just say you do.
No, I do modified sometimes. There's a couple of kind of ways you can end the run a bit quicker, not go as far in and out and back, for example. So I've done that before. It's because why? You don't need to.
And then I had my first foray into a Swift bike race.
Ooh.
I felt I was ready to do that. Now I've got to do a bit more intensity on my bike. Now I'm not skiing anymore. So got myself I'd done a bit of research and I chatted to a few friends that do this a lot. It's their thing. They're like, you've got to be really well warmed up because it just starts and everyone goes really hard. Yeah, okay, I can do that. Really well warmed up. And then everybody goes really, really fast at the beginning. Okay, so I'm ready. So I did about 20 to 25 minutes more, just like you would before, like a 10K, some little easy jogging on the bike, some strides, some faster stuff. Heart rate was up, sweat was on. Got in the pen of this race, and you're all there. I got quite nervous, Gary. And I chosen my what category of like for cyclists out there. It was something like 2.9 to 3.2. So that's watts per kilogram. And I thought I definitely can hold. I'll be on it in this race.
Okay, yeah.
And it set off, and I was holding 4.5 watts per kilogram, which is like normally my sort of like minute max power that I can push. And for 5 minutes, I was destroying myself and I couldn't even keep up. I was like, who are these people that can push these watts?
But have they all kind of put in the wrong wattage then?
I just couldn't. Anyway, after it was 12 laps of the same route. And you have these really clever turbos now where it simulates the hills, the road, everything. So all you have to do is pedal to keep up. And I got dropped from the first bunch straight away. There was just no way. And I got in with this second bunch. And then every time we went up a hill, I'd get dropped. And then I'd have to peg it down the hill and I'd catch them back up. And then by the time I'd done all that, we were almost round a lap. I was like, how are these guys getting away from me? And then I sort of learned that before every hill, they were going faster into this hill. Cadence, spinning their legs up, and then when you hit the hill and your turbo effectively puts a bit of a brake on to simulate the hill, they were already spinning up, and then I was trying to anyway. So dull, but I got it. I got a bit more race savvy. I learned how to draft.
Ooh.
Honestly, it was the hardest. It was 37 minutes long. And as I said, it took me 24 hours to recover. I'm not even sure I'm recovered now. It was both amazing and horrendous at the same time. I will definitely do it again, but I paid for it. Then my running, I had some explosive hill reps to do. and I was too scared to tell coach that they weren't as explosive as planned because I'd been racing the Germans the night before. But it's all good fun, isn't it? It was a really good training session. I loved it. Definitely going to do some more. And I'm loving the cross training, which is good.
So are you a Swift sponsored athlete yet? Then have they been on the phone?
I know. Come on. Why have they not noticed my 3.1 watts per kilogram?
I didn't realize that was a thing until Mimi said about it in her interview. That,
I know. I don't think I'm perhaps on their radar yet.
Not yet. You never know the reach of the podcast, Eddie.
We're just waiting, that viral moment. Anyway, this week we got some race results. So we had Centurion with their opening trail race of the season, the South Downs Way 50. It looked glorious. Blue skies. I heard there's a little bit of wind, a bit of light wind. I mean, for a welcome back to racing, you couldn't have asked for a better day. I've done the South Downs Way 50. I've run on the course many, many times. And one year when I did it, you literally couldn't see your hand in front of your face.
Oh my goodness.
Because the rain and the wind, it was so terrible. So the Lord was obviously shining down on everybody and saying, welcome back to trail running. It looked like a great day. We had a stonking fast male field with Richard McDowell winning in 6 hours and 2 minutes, not well that done. Far off Tom Evans's course record. And then Sarah Hill, friend of the show, friend of mine, finishing in 8 hours 45. As I said to you earlier, a bit of a disappointing number of female finishers. I had a quick scan. There were 333 finishers, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But only about 42 were women. So I think there's lots of reasons that might be, but hopefully as races continue to open up and life gets a little bit more back to normal, we'll see a bit more of an even playing field.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Well, we had a big FKT was set over the weekend. Kim Collison and the Paddy Buckley round set a record in 16 hours, 20 minutes and 40 seconds. See some great photographs of that. So well done, Kim. And a Brennan Townsend did the George Fisher T round, and that's 43k. It's about 3,000, just over 3,000 meters of ascent. So it's quite a challenge, and that was 4 hours and 44 minutes. And anyone who doesn't know about the T round, it's quite interesting. There's a shop in Keswick called George Fisher's, and from one of the windows, basically the T round route is you got to hit the summits that you can see from the George Fisher shop. So it's quite a cool concept, and it was nice to see that popping up over the past few days. And also, which isn't an FKT, sorry, but Des Linden, 50k world record of 2:59 and 54 seconds. My goodness, that's like
5:45 average mile pace. She made it look really easy too.
Nice to just sneak under 3 hours there. And the previous record holder was Brit Ali Dixon. And she was really great. I saw on social media, there was no kind of animosity. I think she did I can't remember what the tweet was, but just hold on a second while I change my bio or something like that. It was really nice. Yeah, it was quite funny.
But she set the precedent. It's hard. Sometimes you break. I mean, she broke that record by quite a lot, I think. Yeah, and someone has to do that first, and then if ever I've held a few course records in my time. You it's not yours. You're just holding it as a good word, as a good verb to use. You're just holding it for somebody to come along and see if they can run faster, and that's what it's all about. It's not your your record. And I love fast marathoners coming into ultras to see what they can do.
I think she's entered Boston, so
she's strong, isn't she? Even though she's tiny, I didn't realize how in stature, height as well. She's really small, but she's obviously a really strong runner. I'd love to see her getting into.
Talking about marathons, though, Japanese lady. I apologize for getting the name terribly wrong, but Mariko Yugeta. She was the women's 60 world record holder, the marathon time of 2:52:01. That's better than my PB and yours, I think, Eddie. I don't know what her kind of athlete age is. I don't know if she was running from a very young age, but it just shows you that, it's never too late to be chasing PBs and stuff like that. But wowzers, 60 plus 2:52:01. But yeah, brilliant. Well done, everybody.
This week, I had a chat with Taylor from the charity Free to Run. This charity is based in Afghanistan, and it's all about empowering women through adventure sports to develop their skills as leaders in regions of conflict. It's a charity I've always had sort of my eye on, thinking that perhaps it would be something that I could support or I could publicize to other people. And then I had a little bit of a read more about it. I had a chat with Taylor, and it really opened my eyes as to not only how hard it is for these women to just to be able to go out of the door running, but how incredibly lucky we are to live in our Western world where we are encouraged, we are majority of the time, we are enabled to go and do all this sport. And these women in Afghanistan have to cope with these incredible roadblocks just to be able to get a pair of trainers.
Yeah.
So it's really enlightening chat with Taylor. I think a lot of people will find it very inspiring. So here it is. Welcome along to the podcast, Taylor Smith, who works for the charity Free to Run. She's going to tell us all about it. And I think you're going to be as inspired and humbled listening to not only the work that the charity does, but the women who have been involved in the charity and what they've achieved so far. Hi, Taylor. How are you today? Back in America?
Yes. Yeah, doing well. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Can we just start off with can you just tell us a little bit about the charity, how it came about, just to sort of, because I think there'll be lots of people that probably have heard about it on social media, but could you just tell us a little bit about where it started and the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Free to Run is an international nonprofit organization that works to support women and girls in areas of conflict through adventure sport, with the goals of really building their, physical, emotional, and social well-being, and helping them develop into be community leaders for positive social change in their communities across, ethnic, religious, and socioeconomic divides. It's an organization that was founded in late 2014 by human rights lawyer and ultra runner Stephanie Case. So Steph was working in Afghanistan and using running actually to fundraise for women's shelters at the time. And when she was able to meet the women, she was quite taken aback by the fact that they were more interested, I suppose, in the running than the money itself. And that's kind of how the idea of Free to Run was born. It started quite small back then. So with a little bit of seed funding, actually partnered with a local organization in one province of Afghanistan, just to start running, simple hiking activities for a small group of women. But I think it became really clear early on that such a sort of unique initiative and project really needed to be its own, full organization and have its own sort of staff and operations, et cetera, behind it. So that's when we decided to get registered locally in Afghanistan. And it's really just kind of grown exponentially from then. I mean, today we're in 5 provinces across Afghanistan and also operate in Iraq as well, and generally serve about over 800 women and girls a year on average.
Wow, that's amazing. And what is your particular role in the charity?
So I'm the executive director. So I oversee both countries. I oversee sort of the operations here in the US now. When I started in 2016, I was actually their first international volunteer. So first country program manager, and the organization's kind of why I know it at its smaller, sort of more intimate stages, has definitely grown exponentially since then. So we've now got 30 plus local staff that really kind of drive and support these programs, and which allows me to take more of that strategic sort of oversight role.
So how do you go about sort of getting into a new province? How do you sort of start the whole setup procedure? Because reading some of the case studies, you come up across a lot of barriers, which perhaps in our Western civilization, we'd be like, well, we just knock through those barriers. We're going to change people's perceptions. But that's obviously in places like Afghanistan, you cannot it's got to be a very slow approach, isn't it? So how do you go about the sort of initiation of the sort of introducing this into somewhere which I couldn't believe was like, it's against everything that that sort of those women are brought up to believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, quite carefully, honestly, right?
Yeah,
I think
I think there's people that not only are the women very brave, but the people that are introducing this concept are very brave as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things we've always struggled with as an organization, so I'm glad you mentioned the case studies, because I think they get into it a little bit, but it's really difficult, I think, for us to kind of explain all the work that goes in behind the scenes to being able to run programs like this in countries like Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, simply from a security standpoint, all the work that we put in to be able to run a single activity for a small group of women and girls. We try to vary routes, training locations, times, and days of sessions. We pause programming at the first sign of a possible threat. Freedom Run's mission is very strongly geared, obviously, towards active conflict zones, which makes security and all of these aspects really, really a huge factor in how we implement on a day-to-day basis. If the security situation in the region generally is not great at the time, not even referring specifically to our programs, it means that we have to kind of rethink or pause or change routes, like I mentioned, which, for some of our provinces, just to, I guess, put it in context, actually means, more than daily bombings. So there's already that threshold level, that is quite high, and that would give, I think, people pause to sort of run and do outdoor activities in the first place. And then you have, obviously the community acceptability standpoint. We work really, really closely with local communities to really ensure that our activities are supported and therefore, sustainable and safe for our participants. And that involves a lot of dialogue with communities before we even start, considering programs or building out, activities. We have to do a lot of work preemptively to kind of open up a dialogue with these communities, like on the programs that we have, on our activities, on the structure, of how we operate, and also just on the benefit of sports and life skills education for women and girls in their communities, particularly considering, Afghanistan and Iraq are still quite patriarchal. So that is a huge part and a huge sort of time aspect that, we don't, I think, you don't really get to see on the website or the case studies, right? A lot of the work that goes in on that. And I'd say that aspect has definitely been really key to our success and growth, that, when communities trust that we will keep their members safe and can actually see the benefits of our programs in the lives of, their community members, their women and girls, and also like the families of, our participants, they kind of trust us to do, bigger and bolder things. For instance, when I first arrived to Afghanistan, we were running in a small compound, not even 100 meters, just doing circles, on grass. Wow, and that was the only space, that we could access. And for now, now we can take participants outside of their homes, and not even just their homes, actually their home province, right? For their first big trip by themselves, to come run a marathon in another province, or to go on a camping expedition even in the mountains for a week. So, that community trust and that building is a long-term process. We've been, operational since, like I said, 2014. So it's not something that we could initially start off doing, really moving from smaller spaces, outreach, dialogue, and then just doing, basic activities to where we are now, where we can do sort of the bigger, the bolder, and organize major sort of sporting and adventure sport, events that never really seemed feasible when I first got there and when the organization was first founded.
Can you explain to people, you talked a little bit about the barriers that you come up against, especially with the women, because I had a very basic concept of how women were living in Afghanistan and Iraq and these sort of war-torn countries, but I had no idea of actually really how they were living, and not only how they were living, but also how they were expected to behave as women. I did not realize what they would come up against just by wanting to go for a walk. Could you sort of explain to people the barriers that we can't really understand here at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the effects of, conflict and violence over decades, on the communities that we work with, and that, like, I think cannot be understated, especially its effect on women. And I mean, this was true prior to the pandemic, right? Which we know, exacerbates inequalities on a global scale. So, I mean, generally speaking, the patriarchal societies of Afghanistan and Iraq are a major barrier. Our participants face literally every day in order to participate, in programming. Having women and girls do sport in public spaces is something that, is still quite considered taboo, by and large, by the community and the countries at large. And, they literally have to confront that on a daily basis, whether it's somebody shouting something at them outside of a car as they drive by, or an actual confrontation, sometimes from somebody who's in this space of, why are you here? What are you doing? Like, women and girls should not be in this space. And so, yeah, I mean, that's obviously a huge barrier that not only we as an organization face, but they have to, come to terms with on an individual sort of basis. I mean, security too, which is obviously tied with that. If you're being confronted, then that obviously calls into question the safety and security that you are, experiencing in that particular space. And that, that aspect obviously also forces us to constantly sort of reassess what is safe to have our participants do, and what could put them in too much danger. Apart from those, I think a barrier that on a larger scale, not referring to our individual participants, but us as an organization, and also just this area of sport for social change. It's, I think there's a very limited sort of understanding of how sports can drive social change, and that's, I think, true both internally in
every country.
Yes, exactly. It's it's something that I think if you as an ultra runner, right, really truly understand the benefit that this can have on you and your perspectives and your attitudes, and where you can see your future and what you're doing. I mean, very basic concepts of goal setting, for instance, right? Or even interval training, like trying to achieve something really tough, and then resting and sort of recuperating and then going at it again, are, I think, really big life lessons. And there is a growing area of, I'm sorry, I have a dog who's a little sick, so
we love a dog. We love a dog on the podcast. Is he all right?
She's a little, yeah.
Oh, I can hear him.
Oh. Yeah.
What's his name?
Her name's Alu.
Oh, Alu, hi.
I think she's dreaming. But yeah, so I mean, there's growing research, I think, into how sport can drive social change, and can drive changes in personal sort of beliefs and attitudes, and really sort of inspire confidence in change. But it has not quite, I think, translated yet to international donor sort of understanding. I
read one of the case studies said that was a couple of when girls had participated in your program, and actually nothing to do with sport at all, but that they'd learned how to just speak up for themselves a little bit in a confrontational manner, but not being confrontational, but being able to explain to someone in a different way how they wanted to do something, which would help them in their other life. Have you got any other examples of when the sport has managed to change women's role, but nothing actually to do with the running? Because I'm a big believer, and I bang my drum with my kids all the time, that the life lessons that you learn through sport actually probably are not going to be used in sport at all, but you learning the sort of the knockdown, you get back up, working with other people, all these life lessons, but that actually we don't really learn anywhere else in life. We probably do if we don't do sport, but it takes a lot longer. But it's so pronounced in sport, isn't it? It's very quickly learnt if we participate in any sort of team game or anything where you have to work with other people. Is there any other? Is there some examples that you can give me that women have then gone back into their community and really shown that this program is groundbreaking?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just from, your comment about having read some of the case studies, right, where they take these life lessons on a small scale. I mean, we have a life skills education component into our programs called Life Skills Through Sports, which is really interactive based play, but teaches you communication, conflict resolution, and leadership. So
how does it do that? I wanted to ask you that about the life skills. What sort of things do you do?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we open every sort of activity up with a sort of debrief and goal setting and talking about what the objectives will be. They move into sort of discussions on what their ideas are on questions, which is somewhat of a tricky concept on the way that Iraq and Afghanistan sort of educational systems are set up. It's not a very sort of interactive, like they don't get asked questions and have to think critically quite often on things. Which is completely different, right? I think from their more sort of lecture-based.
So have the women been able to go to school? Most of the women that you're working with, they've been, or is it?
Yes. So some. I mean, for Afghanistan, we actually partner with the Ministry of Education. So we have access to, in any province, and that actually contributes to like our community sort of buy-in aspect, I think, quite a bit as well. If the Ministry of Education is vouching for us in our programs, then parents feel a little bit more comfortable, and that's how we actually access, women and girls who wouldn't actually come to our program on their own, is because we conduct them in high schools. Whereas in Iraq, we're more in internal displacement camps. And so that's quite a mix, actually, of, girls who do go to school and those who do not. And your question about, what sort of bigger life like changes, have taken place. A lot of our girls in Iraq actually have rejoined school after joining our program. And I think getting to interact with, girls outside of their family who are, like in school again. Obviously, all of them, fled ISIS, and so their schooling and their home life was disrupted. And then when they ended up in this camp, a lot of them just didn't pick it back up because the schools were being conducted in shift sort of sessions, and not nearly as I mean, doing the best that they can, right? But not the same as being able to go to school in your hometown. And so that's been one of the bigger sort of life changes. Another way I've seen a lot of our participants taken into their sort of like their external life outside of our programs. We've actually had a few who have created sort of companies, one in particular in Afghanistan, who decided, that she was going to use what she's learned in our program to develop a sort of local tourism company that's actually geared towards sports, that kind of targets, getting, people together from different ethnic backgrounds to go and travel to different, provinces to kind of get to see their own country, and to also, do so in a way that debunks and sort of like directly confronts these sort of ethnic biases that are so huge in Afghanistan. So, I mean, I like to say that all of our participants are really, inspirational and taking these lessons, to their day-to-day life. But yeah, there have been, I mean, quite a few who have taken it, I guess, above and beyond.
Can you tell us a little bit about the, is it Zainab, sorry if I pronounce her name wrong, who ran the first female Afghanistani to run a marathon? Can you tell us a little bit about her story?
Yeah, so that, to be fair, was before I arrived. But, Zainab was, is still a huge inspiration. It's funny. All the women and girls who come through our program do sort of look up to her and the others who have come after her, for sure. And that's how they kind of have this idea and this goal of running a marathon.
Well, that's what you need, though, isn't it? With a program like that, you start the ball. It can be done. It can be done. It can be done.
Yeah, I mean, for Zainab being the first, right? It's been an exponential growth every year after that. We had 1 in 2015. We had, I think, 6 in 2016. 11 in 2017, 20 something in 2018, and 40 in 2019. It's quite it's interesting to see that sort of ripple effect. I think in sports, I think is unique to being able to create that.
So can you tell us a little bit about her story, her journey?
Yeah, Zainab got introduced to stuff actually when Free to Run was first getting off the ground, and she participated in an ultra marathon actually before she ran the marathon, I believe, in the Gobi Desert. So had to train in, her home province in her garden, which is, like I mentioned when I first got there, right, one of the only sort of training locations, possibilities that we had in the early days. And so she spent a lot of time, running around her garden, able to get her access to like a gym with a treadmill to train. And so it was quite, I think, a different sort of, I guess, aspect than what our current participants go through, because she was really paving the way. She has a lot of sort of experiences, I think, about trying to train outdoors and coming up against some of those barriers of, people shouting things at her and things. And then the marathon itself, being the only sort of local female to sort of participate in. I mean, Steph and one of our former board members were there to kind of help and support, but it was definitely, I think, quite a huge, obviously, not only physical feat for her, but mental as well, to feel like she was the only one, the first one who was, doing this. She now is still quite connected with Freedom Run, but she's working for another organization in Afghanistan, Skatistan, and we still keep in touch, as she actually helps our participants in that province use their location to run, or they do join activities quite often. So it's, she's still very much, I think, in the picture, and still supports not only just Freedom Run, but just women in general running in these.
So this snowball effect that you've seen of more and more participants, have you seen then on the other side people being more accepting of them during this process? Have you seen change there?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I can't emphasize this enough, right? Like, from small yards to being able to actually genuinely do, sport in public spaces and running, in sort of urban and rural centers, in which I never really thought feasible or possible before. And firstly, communities sort of opening up opportunities, for us. Like the partnership I mentioned with the Ministry of Education was a long-term sort of relationship, building that took us quite a few months to convince them why it was important, for us to be able to teach like life skills and sports in high schools, and how that connected, right, like with the Ministry of Education's goal or mission to just educate, right? Like in Afghanistan.
Why do you think it's so anti it, when there's people coming in saying, look, here it is, this is what can happen, we can show you this change? And I think a lot of, I mean, we hear bad news out of Afghanistan, but I imagine there's a lot of people that do want change as well. Do you think it's fear, a lot of it, or the unknown?
Definitely both, I think. I mean, definitely fear, because security is so bad. And, when you're talking about doing activities that require like people in general, right, to leave home, that's a constant sort of question in everyone's mind is, will I be able to come back tonight? Is this worth sort of risking my life? Because it is a genuine risk there every single day for a person to kind of get up and decide to leave, which, is quite foreign, right? And different from
a concept we can't really understand at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, I think, a lot of, just the unknown. Women in sports, like I said, is taboo. It's just not been done. And when you've got, a history such that, Afghanistan does with the Taliban, that's obviously going to be something that changes what is sort of the social norm, and something that takes quite a long time to do, and just will have fear, inevitably sort of connotated with it, just for being so new and different. But I mean, the youth for sure are very, very open to change and would like to see peace. I mean, we've seen this, I think, a lot in the media, and it is true in the country as well. Everyone is very tired of, living in such, fear, and in such a dangerous sort of situation. And so it's, things are changing. Like everything else, social and norms wise, it does take time, but, we have seen, I think, a lot of sort of, change in our programs and just in general over the last few years.
So Afghanistan is the most beautiful country, isn't it? That is so. I see the pictures, and my husband was in the army, so he was out there for a number of years as well, and he used to see, he was very fond of the people and the landscape, and would be, it's so sad that it's so, the war, it's so warring and it's entrenched in the country now. And I'm sure it must be very frustrating for you doing this, in that you want it all, you can see the benefits and the change, but also it must be incredibly rewarding to see little bits, but the patience that you must have to have in your role of being, it's all very small changes. I always think of an old trying to turn an oil tanker at sea, and it's so slow you can barely see it. But I guess if you're constantly just making those little changes, you know you're moving forward, though sometimes you can't even see them, I guess, as well.
Yeah, I think, having been there, a longevity of, how long I guess I've worked in the region and in this sector is definitely, like, I've gotten to see, these little changes compound over time. And I think one of the biggest ways in which I've realized it is, people's questions of like, oh, what programs do you do? And me being able to look back and realize there are things that we do now, right? That like I never even dreamed possible.
Maybe like 5 years ago, you'd have been like, we never would have done that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the country, both Afghanistan and Iraq, I think would be an adventurer's dream. Afghanistan has taller mountains for sure, but I think both countries are just, absolutely stunning and sort of untouched in some way, because, they're not sort of tourist destinations, or they're not places that people go hiking or running, or, even some of our other sports like kayaking or ice skating or skiing. So they are, definitely.
I loved the story of the girl balancing on the ice skate blade, and she's like, if I can do that, I can do anything. And I thought, gosh, that's what it's all about, isn't it? You give for us, you give such a small amount, but what they are actually receiving is, you couldn't put it into words. It's totally life-changing. Taylor, I'm totally inspired by this charity, and I'm sure everybody's listening has been inspired by what, just briefly, what you've told us. So this is one of the big things that I wanted to know, was what can we do here to help, to support, to sort of point us in the right direction of, I'm sure there'll be lots of people going, oh my gosh, this sounds something I want to be involved in. Yeah, I mean, I think, there's lots of ways to, I think, get involved in and support us. We're really small, so our capacity to kind of respond and to kind of house volunteers is quite limited. A lot of our time is obviously spent just running the programs in country. And so, it gets quite hard, I think, for us to sort of support, a wide range of volunteers. But however, I think if you've got like a race or an event, or even just need a little bit of motivation for a challenge of some kind, using it to support Free to Run and either awareness or fundraising is a huge way in which you can, kind of support us in our missions. Races have been, a huge, a big part of the way that we fundraise to support our programs. And obviously they've taken a huge hit with COVID and the pandemic and cancellation. I wondered that. So I mean, even beyond, the funding though, they're a big way that I think people get to know about our organization. If somebody runs and they're running, in support of, or posting about, why they're doing this sort of challenge, right? In support of women and girls in Afghanistan and Iraq, and in support of this organization called Free to Run. I mean, that's a huge way in which you can sort of still support us. We got an amazing email the other day, actually, from a mother telling us about her 8-year-old daughter who decided to run like 250 kilometers that year, and decided to dedicate it to Free to Run, and is trying to actually fundraise as well. And like, those are the stories that, I think I love sharing with our participants, because it shows them that there is this sort of global audience of support behind them. And it must really help you as well when you're out there to know that there are people behind you, and that you've got this support. From an 8-year-old running 250 kilometers. But I guess it's probably quite lonely for you sometimes as well out there. You can feel that you're like beating this drum all by yourself sometimes. No, I'd say not, honestly. The community of our participants and our staff have really changed, maybe at first a little bit, because we were small, and it was trying to figure out in what ways we were going to be able to operate and what we were going to be able to do. But now it just feels like there is this like amazing community of like badass women and girls who just really want to push the barriers on what they're able to do. And that
I don't feel lonely at all anymore, honestly. So
What about like kit and stuff? How do the women, presumably they don't have trainers, they don't have any specific running kit. Do you provide that with them, or is it something that people could perhaps donate old kit to the charity?
we do. So we provide them with running sneakers. We provide them with a little bit of gear as well, because they don't have running clothes typically. Previously, we did accept donations. However, we can't get it over there unless I cart it over myself. And we do try and support the local economy in any way that we can. We had a really tough time finding running sneakers for sure in the early years, hence why we were taking donations. It just kind of became, first of all, unsustainable in that sense, and second of all, we actually found there's this little bazaar area of town that you can actually buy good quality sneakers. So we've just been getting them from there ever since. They love our business, obviously, especially as we grow.
They're like, yeah, the free to run guys.
Yeah, we buy a lot of trainers from them. So.
That's brilliant. Oh, well, Taylor, thank you so much for coming on the show and just sharing us a very small part of the work that you do. I can't thank you enough for all that work. We will put all the details of your charity on the show notes so that people can have a look, and hopefully you will see a surge of social media interaction. I know there's lots of people out in the UK when there's no races, people are doing loads of like different endeavors and adventures and FKTs, and just to put your name forward and say I'm doing it for this would be fantastic. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you for having me.
Taylor, for coming onto the show. Do check them out. Have a look at they've got a really good webpage and lots of videos to have a look at. Spread the word. I think that's the biggest thing that came out of it when I kept saying, what can we do? Do you want kit? And like, the biggest thing you can do is educate ourselves and spread the word. So sort of alongside this, I decided to have a little chat with my husband this week. My husband works in security, and so he sort of has firsthand ground knowledge on how to be safe in areas of conflict. He's been in Afghanistan a lot. But also he's often given me very wise words when I've been going out running, and reinforcing them a lot, because as runners, male and female, we get very complacent about our security when we're going out running. And so I had a little chat with him about how we can always make sure that we're safe, little pointers. And he very kindly also wrote us a little blog post, which we're going to put on the show notes. Really useful if you just don't take anything else away from when you listen to us warbling on the podcast, that there's some really good pointers of things that you just let it go into your subconscious. You never know when you might need them. So here's me and Bryn having I'm very happy and delighted to welcome my husband, Bryn, to the podcast. We'll be truthful, and we're recording this. We've bribed the kids, and he's in one room and I'm in the other room. So it's a bit of a bizarre situation. But my husband, as I said in the intro, he works in security, and he's often given me a lot of really good advice on keeping myself safe and being aware. And he often reminds me of the same advice again and again, in which I tend to go in one ear and out the other ear. So I asked him about this this podcast, and I asked him for if he could email me a few tips on what I could say to how you keep yourself safe when you're out running alone. And he was very kind, and he wrote me a really good email, bullet pointed and very efficient. And when I read the email, I said, you've got to come on the podcast and talk us through this. So, hi, Bryn.
Hi. Hi. How are you?
Would you say you were Run to the Hill's biggest fan?
Well, I'm a long time listener, obviously first time interviewee, but
You've been trying to get on for many episodes, haven't you?
I've at last reached that peak. I'm overjoyed, as you can tell.
But this is we Josh, but this is really good what what we're going to talk about now is life changing, and it's life protecting information that we should all know, and which we probably all, it's only common sense, isn't it? But it's stuff that we should think about every time that we go for a run. So can we just start at the beginning? What would you sort of say? What should you do? You're planning on going on a run. Perhaps you know, either a new environment or environment you know really well. What should you do? What's the sort of first things you should do before you go for a run?
Yeah, sure. I think in security, often, you know, we talk about just applying some really simple measures. And if you can do that, then often enough what we're trying to do is try to avoid any problems to start with. You know, the last thing we want to be doing is, you know, finding yourself in a tough situation which we can't get out of. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today will follow an acronym which is called PACER. So PACER, and that's planning your run, avoiding patterns. C is for communication. E is ensuring awareness, and then R is relying on your gut. And that's a really important part, which we'll come on to later. But you asked about the planning side. If I do start off with the sort of P of the PACER acronym, it's all about planning your run. And just like you would, you know, if you were training, understanding how far you're going to go, what pace you're going to go, and so on. It's really important you think about just a rough route that you're going to follow, how much time it will take, and then equally that allows you to then tell somebody, that one of your loved ones, somebody in your family, your friend, you know, when you're going to be back roughly. Again, you may take a bit longer, you may take a slightly different route, and that's absolutely fine. Yeah, then obviously you want to go out and enjoy your run, but clearly one of the key things here is you tell somebody roughly when you're going to be back and the rough route that you're going to take, so that they can then have an idea. If you're not back by a certain time, they can raise the alarm, or they can certainly start to give you a call, and sort of trace back where you've been at what time. So that's probably the first thing. Equally, if you start planning your route, it allows you to have a look at the main features. If you're talking, you know, a run out in the wilds, you can start thinking about the key pieces of terrain which you're going to come across. So whether that's a bridge, whether that's you know, a key hill which you're going to go past at some point, and that partly allows you to route find properly, but it also makes sure that you're going to be you know, following the route that you mentioned to your you know, your friend, your partner. Equally, if you're going through built-up areas, it will allow you to see, you know, even silly things like where there are roadworks. It will also allow you to see where, you know, maybe there are stops where you can ask people for help if you need to, gain shelter if you're in a spot of trouble. So those could be anything: pubs, key crossroads, even a police station. So it gives you an idea, and all that, you know, simple, really simple. Doesn't need to be an extensive search prior to going out. You know, you can have a look on Google Maps. It'll take you a couple of minutes, have a quick look. So even if you know where you're going and you're really familiar with the route, just be mindful. You know, are you going out at a time of day that you know what it looks like? Are you going out, or are you sure, you know, if there are roadworks which you're not aware of, which may have come up in the meantime, which may mean you have to take a diversion, all sorts of things there which you can have a quick look at before going out. So that's the first thing, is planning your run. Second part, I'd say, is, I said, avoiding patterns. Often enough in security, we talk about how criminal actors, or you know, bad people, essentially, bad guys, will try and target us.
Bad guys.
Bad guys. And that essentially want to try and make it as difficult for them to target us as possible. So how do we do that? Well, we try not to set patterns, and we try not to make ourselves an obvious target. What they'll try and do is they'll try and have a look at us. They'll try and see, you know, if there's a specific time we go for a run. You know, do we head out before work every time? 7 o'clock on the dot, we're out the door. We each time take the same route, and we do our 5-mile route, or whatever it is, and we come back at 7:30, 40, and head out after a shower to work. Is that what you're doing? If so, you're setting a pattern which people can then see and go, okay, well, one, that means that they know exactly where you're going to be at that particular time. So it means that they could target you, or they could potentially target your house. They know there's nobody in there at the same time. I know when you were doing triathlon a while back, and there was a very famous triathlete who I think posted on social media all about what they were doing, going away to Hawaii for a month, came back and their house was completely emptied because they knew that there was going to be nobody there. So it's all about not setting patterns and just being a bit aware of who's around you at that time, to make yourself a bit of a difficult target to hit. So just try and, even if you still want to go on your morning run, just try and vary the time a bit. Make sure you don't always turn right. Yeah. Turn left, turn right. Just vary it a bit so that people don't know where you're going to be at the same time every day. So that's the second part, avoiding patterns. Thirdly is communication. And this is one of the biggest things. So always try and have your phone on you. Not so much for the music that you're going to play on your earphones.
We'll get onto that in a minute. Yeah, I knew you were going to tell me off.
No, I mean, it's a common thing that a lot of people do. But no, main thing is it's your main means of, apart from shouting, obviously, but it's your main means of communicating with either the emergency services, a friend, anybody who can help you, essentially. So what does that mean? One, it means having your phone on you and making sure that it's fully charged, okay, especially on long runs. Obviously, if you're doing multi-days, it's a slightly different proposition. But yeah, even if you're going on a long run, have a think about what you need to do with your phone. You need to, maybe turn it off for the first couple of hours if you're going to need it later on in the day. But yeah, and that's really valid as much for safety as it is for security. Okay, if you're out in the wilds and you slip, trip, fall over and break your leg, and there's nobody around for miles, you really need to be able to call out the emergency services to come and help you. Or you could be out there for a while, potentially cold, hungry, and in trouble. So,
and I guess as well, that's when, if you've done a bit of route planning, if you're going somewhere you don't know, but like, okay, well, I've seen there's a bridge there, or there's a dam there, or there's big pylons there, you can at least describe where you think you are in relation to those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of just saying I'm on a hill. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's part of your planning you'll be aware of where you've been, what stage of the run you're in. And what main feature you've been past. So, yeah, I mean, if you're out in the wilds, it could be anything from a grid reference to northeast of this particular village. I've just been past, as you said, the pylons. I've just gone past the bridge just outside, such and such a town. Anything to give them an idea of where they can start to find you. Obviously, if you're in town, a lot easier. You can start to build up the picture with exact locations, street names, and so on. But yeah, so have those means of communication on you. At the moment, there are, and in fact, since the last 5-10 years, there are loads of really good apps which you can get, especially on the smartphones, and those are both good for yourself, but also for other people to track you. And those can help you do all sorts of things. You can set up an SOS call if you don't do something within a certain time. They're used a lot for remote workers, like people who are carers for people if they're going into dangerous areas of town and so on. So for runners, absolutely applicable, and you could use those, and it'd be really useful.
Being aware, I think that's probably the biggest thing that you can do without any apps, communication, any knowledge. Being aware.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to come back to just one thing on the communication. This applies as much as in the UK as it does if you're abroad. If you're on holidays or if you're away with work somewhere, just be aware of the numbers for the local area. Whether that's emergency services, the number of your hotel if you've just come out of that. Any anybody really you can reach out to immediately to let them know you're in trouble. But yeah, absolutely, coming back to what you just said there, the awareness, so that's the E of the PACER acronym, so ensuring awareness. Really, I could talk about this for ages and ages. There's loads of different bits and pieces, and it's a really interesting area that it's constantly evolving, and just understanding how the brain works and how we're aware of what's happening around us. But in simple terms, what we want to try and do here is, and I'll talk about just one method in particular, is to raise, well, not raise necessarily, but sort of gauge our level of alertness appropriately and in accordance with what's happening around us. So obviously, if we're out in the middle of nowhere, you can see for miles around you, middle of the day, bright sunshine, having a lovely run.
The dream, no kids.
And you can see trouble coming at you a mile away, or not, as the case may be. Then obviously your levels of alertness will be at green. I'll come back to the green relates to basically what we call a traffic light system. With green being where you're most at ease and you're not worried at all about what's happening around you. Going through amber and reaching red, where your levels of alertness are quite high because you feel that there's something not quite right around you. So for red situation, that could be you're running late at night, you're running down a bit of a narrow alley where there aren't that many exits, and you can see there's a couple of shady-looking people hanging around in the darkness, and immediately that should maybe they're completely innocent, but equally that should raise your level of alertness to the red level. So you're absolutely aware of everything that's happening around you, and that you can react quickly to anything that happens. So using that traffic light system should really help you raise and lower your level of alertness. What we're talking about here is not trying to make you Kevin Costner and Bodyguard, trying to be aware of everything. And,
you could be if you wanted to be. I wouldn't mind.
Obviously, but no. The key thing here is you're not going to try and bring out.
You can't be like that all the time, can you?
That's the thing. You'd be absolutely exhausted for starters, and you would be a nervous wreck. But the key thing here is just understanding your environment and understanding what sort of threat certain people or certain situations may pose for you. So if you're going up a street, it's just understanding, okay, there's nobody within a 10-meter radius of me. So therefore, I've got time to move, I've got time to look at exits, entrances, I can move around and freely, and I can change. I've got lots of options around me. As soon as I've got people within that sort of 5-meter or 3-meter area around me, and I haven't got maybe as many options to move right, to move left, to change side of the street. Maybe it's not a particularly busy time of the day, it's late at night. Suddenly, all these factors should start to make you a bit more aware of what's happening around you, and a bit more thinking about, right, what are my options? Can I turn back round? All right, might feel a bit foolish, but who cares? Doesn't matter. I've got one option. I've just come from there. I know there's nobody around. Okay, I can turn around. I'll just see how this goes. Is there another option? Can I start to sprint in that direction out to the right if I've got somebody to the left near me? All these sort of things should be starting to go through your head. But equally, to come back to the traffic light system, it means that you can then just gauge what sort of alertness you should be at different times and in different scenarios.
What should I do if I'm like that? I'm out running and I start to feel anxious about a situation that I'm in. As a female, I'm out, I'm running around, something triggers that nervous response. What would you sort of say? What would be your tips to sort of say, well, what can I have in the back of my mind as my sort of action?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, and it draws on a couple of the points that I mentioned in the acronym. First of all, it comes back to your planning. One is you should always be aware along the different stages of your route possible places where you can seek shelter and hopefully have that human contact with somebody you can trust, but also enables you to then communicate out, and somebody you can potentially, you know, some people talk about a safe harbor, you know, somewhere where you can go in, they'll one help you, you know, relatively secure, and also you can then use your phone in a safe environment. You know, last thing you want to be doing, I mentioned the communication, last thing you want to be doing is, you know, pegging it away from somebody because you're scared, as well as trying to get your phone out at the same time. First thing you need to do is get to a place of safety and communicate out to somebody you know, who can then, you know, potentially come and pick you up. They can direct you also. If you're panicking a bit, they can give you a good idea of some safe places you can go around you, and they can advise you with a bit of a calmer head from a distance. So I would say, yeah, if you find yourself in a bit of a dodgy situation, and this maybe comes on to the last point, which is, you know, relying on your gut. I mean, I think we've all been in that situation where you're going into a situation and you're thinking, this is weird, I don't feel right, there's a knot in the pit of your stomach, it's that feeling like when you're going into an interview or something, and you just know that there's something, in the army we used to talk about atmospherics, and all it is it's what's happening around you. If you know that you can feel in the pit of your stomach something's not right, and that's not in the pit of your stomach is actually based on your sort of subconscious, which takes in loads of information. It's based on your experience from countless years and countless runs and countless encounters with people. And it understands, even if you're conscious, if you want, doesn't really recognize it, if your brain doesn't recognize it, your heart, your pit of your stomach does, and it realizes that something's wrong. I'm not saying, you know, whenever you get that feeling that you're surrounded by, you know, criminals, or there's danger at the, you know, which is immediately going to come upon you. Not at all, but it does give you an idea that something's not quite right and you should react to that. All too often, unfortunately, if you talk to victims, if you listen to victims after they've been, you know, as a result of something nasty happening to them, they will often say, yeah, I knew it wasn't quite right, but, you know, he was sort of pestering me, so I just thought, oh, I'll keep on going, and then he was at my front door, and, you know, and you thought, oh, just a cup of coffee. I thought, you know, if he comes in for a cup of coffee, then it'll be quickly done and dusted, and I can just get rid of him. Instead of just going, no thanks, shut the door, listen to your gut. You know, people have really succumbed to some really sad and horrible things. And so, yeah, coming back to what, you know, I started off, trust your gut. Your gut is your friend, okay? Worst case, you come away a bit embarrassed going, I don't know, maybe there wasn't something, maybe there was. But ultimately, you know, far better than being a bit embarrassed rather than, you know, suffering a nasty incident, a nasty scare.
Yeah,
So,
because a couple of times, haven't it? When I've been out running, either had to go out late at night and it's dark, or when it gets really busy here, suddenly there's a whole lot of people that aren't locals, and I've come back and I've said it didn't feel right. You know, I was followed, or cars have followed me, and you've given me really good advice before to say just go into a hotel, go into a shop, and don't feel foolish about doing that. And that's the biggest thing, I think, as a woman. When you're out, you feel you don't want to make a fuss because you think, and 99.9% of the time you're perfectly safe. You're just feeling a bit uncertain about what to do. But you've always reassured me to sort of overcome that sort of ego and just make yourself safe. You're never going to you're never going to regret that, are you?
Yeah, I think, you know, I said it at the start that all the points here are really about, you know, being better safe than sorry. And again, you know, you're not going to be doing this on every run either. But that one time when you're in a, you know, potentially you're in a, you know, somebody, you hear footsteps of somebody behind you, or I don't know, it's just somebody who looks just a bit weird, and you get that, you know, that feeling in your stomach. You know, change sides, go to the other side, go to the other side of the street, or just simply turn back, do a detour, you know, box around that place, and rejoin your route at a later stage. All you're going to do is, one, go, okay, well, potentially I've avoided a bad situation. Maybe you've added a 5-10 minutes onto your run. If you're really not sure still, then communicate to, call your friend, get them to pick you up, find somewhere safe that you can, just stay, whether that's a pub or a shop or, as you said, a hotel. Have a think about what is going to be open if you're going to be, depending on when you're doing your run too.
And on a totally, I realise we've been a bit like doom and gloom about what would happen, but I think it's an important message that people, it's all common sense and people should know this, but it never harm to reiterate. But what about as a man running and you are a female alone? Because a lot of men aren't aware of the sort of this nervous anticipation we have as females running on our own, and also a lot of harassment we get of running when we're on our own. I mean, there's a lot less now that we're in France, but when we were in London, every single run I went on, I would be beeped at, the builders would shout at me. But what, as a man, if you're out running and you're approaching a female on their own, what would you sort of give us like a tip to guys so that the woman feels safe? If you're in an environment where you've got to run past each other, it's dark, what could you sort of say to men to sort of so that they're sort of aware of how a female might feel?
Yeah, sure. I think the principles apply to all, and there are certain things which are more maybe more relevant to one sex or the other. But I think I think we're far more aware today, especially with all the stuff that's in the news. I think we're far more aware, hopefully people are, especially men, are more aware of, just how women can feel in those sort of situations. And I think for me, certainly if I go out on a run, and unfortunately it comes back to this thing sometimes, this example in particular, where somebody will have their, woman might be in front of me, will have their earphones on, they won't necessarily be particularly aware of what's happening around them. And because of that, I actually make, more often than not, I've probably got the dogs with me, so they'll give an advance warning of myself coming anyway. But
a wet nose will give an advance warning.
But actually what I'll try and do is, I'll try and find an area which is quite wide, so I don't have to brush up right against them just to go past them, because they'll scare the crap out of them. Sorry, scare the living daylights out of them. But yeah, I think, make yourself as visible as possible. Try and give people the space so they can do that. And obviously that's more relevant even today than ever with COVID. But yeah, just try and give people their personal space. Try and make yourself visible.
That's really good. Thinking about if you are overtaking a woman, where you're going to overtake them. So in an open space, you're not on the narrowest woody path. Obviously, there's some points when you can't. You're in a trail, a narrow trail, but just making yourself known before that. Yeah,
I mean, I found myself, even making stupid noises just so that people would know that I was, coming past, because you could see that they weren't particularly aware of what was happening around them. So yeah, even if it's just whistling and then hello, or
cheery
making
bonjour.
Really, yeah, exactly, but just making it really obvious. One, sort of alerting them to your presence, but it also allows you then to signal an intent of friendliness and non-aggression. And I think people may say, okay, well that's it's being really trying to overplay it, but I think you can't undermine or underplay how vulnerable people feel, especially out when they're out and about. And I think it's a very small thing. It's a couple of things you can do, which doesn't take any effort, and a smile and hello, bang, means that they're aware of you. They know you're not going to, you're not hopefully not posing a threat, because you're far enough away. You're already signaling to them that you're, you can even, hello, put your hands up. It's a sort of universal signal of surrender. But that, already signals to somebody that you don't pose a threat to them.
And it can make a whole difference between a woman being encouraged to go out running because this is a factor that prevents a lot of women that this is, especially gyms are shut. This is their only option to get out, to get exercise, to escape from the kids. But a lot of people are intimidated by this is a barrier to being able to go out and to feel safe. And we should all feel safe, and we should have the right to feel safe. So it shouldn't just be women that have to educate themselves on how to keep themselves safe. It's really important for men to know and to understand. And there'll be men in situations, if they're out working in different places, that they also need this sort of knowledge. So just go back. So your PACER acronym, just sort of final recap, was a really cool thing to remember, especially as it's sort of running word.
Well, I designed it specifically for the running community.
You're so kind.
So PACER, PACER. So P, plan your run. Have a good idea of where you're going to go, how long it's going to take, and tell somebody about it. A, avoid patterns. Don't make yourself a target. Okay, always
don't wear that t-shirt.
That target, exactly. Hit me. So A, avoid patterns. C, communicate. Always have a chance to phone on you. Have a look at the apps. I can even put a few on the
show notes. You've been longing to say that for weeks.
I've been an avid listener. So C, communicate. Always have that chance to phone on. E, ensure awareness. Okay, massive part of what we do. Security. Be aware of what's happening around you. Don't be a nervous wreck. Use the traffic light system. Okay, not going to be Kevin Costner, not this time, but just so you're aware of what's happening around you, and you can raise your level of alertness in a riskier situation, and you can chill out when you're out on the dales in wide open space. So E, ensure awareness. And the last one, really important, rely on your gut. It's your best friend. It's going to tell you what's happening around you. It picks up on all sorts of signals around you. So listen to it. Don't be embarrassed. Okay, turn around, use a different route. When there's doubt, there's no doubt. Okay, change your route, seek shelter, and avoid the area of concern. And that's pretty much it. But it's all about prevention. Okay, much better to prevent and avoid rather than find yourself in a sticky situation.
Thank you so much, Bryn. I'm really taken on board what you said. And when I say I'm going for that 60-minute run and it's 2.5 hours later, you'll be the first one calling me. But that'll be more like, when you're coming back, kids are driving me nuts. Thank you so much, Bryn, for coming on the show. I know he listens every week. He doesn't, because I often have to tell him, but I know he normally does on his commute. Long-time fan. So, Gary, when you're running, do you ever feel like unsafe, or are you ever aware, on the other flip side, when you're running and you see females running on their own, are you ever thinking, I don't want to be careful, I don't want to startle people?
As a white man, I very rarely think of it at all. Sometimes I might not go to a place maybe for my own safety, but not maybe I'm worried about what somebody else might do to me. It might be, say, if I fall over and I'm in a quite remote location or something. But no, I just don't think about it. Yes, if I was running somewhere and it was quite quiet and I saw a woman running on her own, I wouldn't want to kind of get too close and freak her out, but I wouldn't even know what to do not to freak her out. So guilty. I just don't have to, luckily I don't have to really think about it.
Like, you think you don't need to do it, but then we're a bit complacent, aren't we? But we should all be aware of how this is, but also from the other side, you should be aware of how you running towards a female as well, especially if it's in the dark or all your own, how that female is feeling. But and you not having that feeling, but I feel men should also take on the responsibility that if they are running and there's a woman running on their own, I mean, the biggest thing to me is to just give some personal space.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, and I know I speak for every female running here, there is nothing worse than a man running behind you, especially if you overtake them and then they start running behind you over breathing. It doesn't matter, male or female. You should always respect somebody's personal space and be aware how that woman is feeling. I know that I had Bryn, because we live in a really small town, so pretty much, I mean, I would say like 70% of the people here, even the cars, are the same cars that are going up and down the road. But then in the holiday times, it gets really busy.
Okay.
It goes from like, I don't know, I think there's like 2,000 people in the surrounding area. And then a Christmas, maybe February holiday, there's 30,000 people.
Oh, wow.
So suddenly there's a whole lot of other people. And every year there's stories of women being followed, women being attacked.
Yeah.
So I have to be really savvy and go from, as Bryn talked about, a green light, which I am most of the time out on the trails, to suddenly this red light, be aware. Don't feel embarrassed that, if ever you do feel unsafe, it's normally because you feel unsafe.
Yeah.
So big learnings, stay safe.
Lisa's always said to me, not from a kind of physical safety point of view, but just make the simple, correct decisions. Don't push on and get yourself in more trouble. Just simple decisions to get as safe as quick as possible. Okay.
So what you got coming up this week? Staying safe.
Well, it's my son's birthday actually on Sunday. George, 13, so big birthday.
It's a big, now, teenager. Talk me through this. I mean,
I've already got a teenager.
You're a professional teenager.
Yeah. Well,
what's he into? What's the sort of activity of choice?
He loves his Xbox. My goodness me, he's pretty much glued to his Xbox, YouTube, or FaceTiming his friends, and it could all be all three at one time. He really enjoys his Xbox. Yeah, it's quite nice actually. We're trying to do a little mile together. So at the end of my run, I'll do my strides, and he just naturally wants to race me. So it just ends up with him being exhausted. So I've said, George, come on, just jog them. That's all you have to do. Then I'll wait. Then we'll walk back together. So last night when he jogged them, it was a much more pleasant experience for both of us. So yeah, we'll do that. So he wants a Mexican, and it's not going to be anything fancy. It'll be the old El Paso kit Mexican buffet.
Oh, I love the old El Paso kit. Yeah.
So that's our Sunday, which would be really good. And what have we got tonight is a threshold run, but on the plan, it's quite just a 10-minute one. So it's quite nice. It's not a big threshold run. But Saturday, well, I've got my COVID vaccine jab on Friday.
Ooh, you need a rest day after that.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. I'm going to go and do 8 hours in the Lake District.
If I feel poorly, then I'm not going. But the plan is to go to the lakes again and do a leg 2 out and back. So start at Dunmill, raise, run to Threlkeld in the car park, have some food, turn around and go back again. So that will be 7. That's going to be 7 hours. That's the plan for Saturday. But that's all COVID vaccine pending.
Well, most people I've heard don't feel great, but I have heard a few people that feel fine.
Yeah. I can't do anything about it. Just got to, it is what I've been trying to put it off. I get the vaccine booked in for a Monday, but all the slots just keep coming up on a Friday.
Rest day. I need it on a rest day.
So I just got to do it. But yeah, what about you? What's coming up?
I've got big brick session to do. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm going out. The bike's going to be released off Swift. Out. I'm going out, Gary. Not in my little vest top and my high heels, though. So next couple of days, I'm going to have I'm having a day of exercise. Bryn's going to have the kids, and I'm going to do a 3-hour bike and then an hour and 45-minute run.
Ooh.
It's going to be spicy. So I've got some mates to do the ride with me who are we're also on this 10K radius in our lockdown. So we got to just circle around for 3 hours. So but we're lucky in our 10K radius, we can go up some coals.
Okay.
So we can sort of do like little spider legs out and back. The boulangerie is just the good one. The cycling one that I've heard so much about is outside this 10K. And we're too scared to break the rules. So I'm looking forward to just a day outside. As I said to you a bit earlier, I feel a bit, I got really used to, with all the skiing, being out in the mountains every day. Yeah. And with this lockdown and the kids at home, I feel a little bit like a penned in hamster on my wheel. In my cold cave. So I'm looking forward to a day outside, see how I feel.
Cool.
And then it would just be kids going back to school on Monday. Hooray.
Has it been 3 weeks?
The kids are back. It's been 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Hasn't time flown. So this time next week, I'll be a different player. There'll be party poppers. I mean, you might not be able to get hold of me because I'll probably be just somewhere on my phone. No signal, sorry. No recording this week.
Cool.
Anyway, have a great week. Stay safe, everybody.
Yeah, stay safe. And good luck to everyone who's racing this weekend. It'll be great to see all your pictures on social media and all local to us. Trail Outlaws, I think, my goodness me, I think it's probably their first race since all of this lockdown started. So I've got everything crossed. It all goes well for those guys. So yeah, good luck everyone running around the Washington trails. Yeah, stay safe. Have a great week. Eddie, that was episode 34. My name is Gary Thwaites.
I'm Eddie Sutton, and let's run to the hills.